person after person after person came up to me and said, your dad was the most honest man I've ever met. And I tell you, that has always been my goal in life, is at my funeral, I want people to walk up to my family and say, Andy Hubbard was the most honest man I have ever met.
You're listening to the Good for Business podcast, where we feature interviews, tips, and tricks from owners, operators, and innovators throughout Mississippi and around the world. And now, your host, Colin Krieger. Hey guys, welcome this week to the show. My guest today is Andy Hubbard from AHI Insurance. Andy's a good buddy of mine from B&I, Business Networking International. We meet every Thursday down here at events off Fifth. If you're ever interested in that and getting to know good people and networking, let me know. So welcome to the show, Andy. As we start every week, give me your pedigree information.
All right. First of all, I'd like to thank you for inviting me. This is absolutely wonderful. It's something I've always wanted to do, to be on a podcast. And I was born in Columbus, in the hospital at Columbus Air Force Base. And not a lot of people can say that here. I was educated in the Columbus Public Schools, graduated from Lee High School, and I have a wife, Cheryl, of 26 years, and I have a daughter, Ella, 16, and that's who I am.
There you go. My favorite question to ask is how we start. What's the origin story? I want to know the origin story of 7'5" tall Andy Hubbard strolling around Mississippi when he was a baby.
Yeah, so I was very fortunate. I had some really good parents. Some of the things that I found out about my parents, I didn't realize how great it was at the time. But my dad was actually a World War II veteran. And he served in the Air Force for 20 years. And at that same time, my mom was a women's ordnance worker. They called them WOW. And so, they're not as popular as Rosie the Riveter.
Yeah.
But, she worked at Prairie, Mississippi in an ordnance factory, building bombs for the war effort. And she was 16 years old. She lied about her age and, had that really strong work ethic from the very beginning. My parents had Hubbard's Appliance Service, and little Andy, starting about 10 years old, started carrying a toolbox and holding a light for my dad.
Where was their office located, and where did y'all live?
Yeah, so originally it was on Waterworks Road. We lived in a house on 23rd Street, and we faced 23rd Street. The shop was on Waterworks Road, and years later, they moved the shop over on Military, close to where the health department used to be. And so he was there until his retirement.
There you go. And so were you wrenching on air conditioners and refrigerators when you were a kid?
I wasn't good at it, but I sure did give it a try. But yes, so, back in that day, window units were the thing. And every summer I was helping do that. And so we would go and we would get an air conditioner that wasn't working. We would normally, it seemed like the fan motors went out a lot. And so we would take it and we would wash it, clean it all out. And then we would put a new fan motor in it, wire it up, get it cooling, put it back in the window. And my dad would say, come on, son, it's time to go. And I'm like, Dad, can we just stay here a few more minutes and make sure it cools? So, so very early on, we started, I started working and doing things for him.
What was your first job outside of working for the family?
K-Mart.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that was one of my first jobs. I was a greeter at K-Mart and worked in the lawn and garden section in Metairie, Louisiana as a kid. And I used to go up to the microphone all the time and get in trouble and say, Conan the Barbarian to the garden shop, Conan the Barbarian. to the garden shop. And as long as you said it with the right cadence, you were fine.
Yeah,
Did
yeah.
y'all, now the K-Mart here, I wasn't familiar.
Yeah.
Is it K-Mart on 45?
Yeah, it was originally where I think what is that? Is it Goodies? Is it Old Navy? Old Navy. Where
Oh,
Old
okay.
Navy
So
is
that's the original K.
And it was, attention Kmart shoppers, the time is now 8:45 and Kmart will be closing in 15 minutes. At this time, please begin making your final selections and come to the front. Checkout says Kmart will close promptly at 9 p.m. We'd like to remind you of our regular Kmart store hours are from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Saturday. And as always, thank you for shopping our Kmart.
My wife is going to get a kick out of that. Before we met, we worked together at Kmart a couple years before we met at Papa John's. Now, did they have the food, the restaurant in the front?
It was in the back.
It was in the back? Did it have,
Yeah.
I used to go get like it was like stewed meat over rice with green beans and stuff. That's my favorite place to eat.
Yeah,
Home
they had
cooking
great
at
food.
Kmart. So
Yeah.
if anybody's watching, if I could go to Walmart and have anything other than Subway, that would be good. I'll talk to my friends at Sunflower Grocery Store. Maybe they can do that. In East Columbus.
And they need to put a few chairs in there so we can sit and eat.
Yeah, I want to hang out in a grocery store. That's what I need to do. My wife tends to do that when she goes over to I call it the Starbucks that happens to have a Kroger. It's supposed to be a Kroger that happens to have a Starbucks over in Starkville. But I think people have missed, other than a lot of the mentally challenged people miss hanging out in grocery stores for hours on end.
Oh, yeah.
So what did you do at Kmart mainly?
Yeah, so I started out, I was just a stockman. I emptied the garbage and put out toilet paper and diapers. And I was there a few years or maybe a year or so. And they gave me an opportunity to sell appliances in the appliance department. So that was my first job that had any commission based into it. And one Christmas, my commission was larger than my paycheck, and I decided sales is what I wanted to do.
It's a good way how you stumble into that to find out what you want to do. Of course, the scary part about sales is when it slows down. But when it isn't slow, it's an exceptional business to be in.
Feast or famine.
Yeah, and you learn a lot when you're scrounging for business or have a slow month or something. And like for me, I double down on education and stuff. It's a lot easier these days with YouTube, and I know you're a podcast listener, that you can always be learning instead of always be selling.
That's right.
We'll trademark that. Always be learning, ABL. So after Kmart and selling appliances there, what was the next step?
Yeah, so I finally got a job working at United Technologies, and that was a local factory that was here. We made fractional horsepower motors, and after working there for about 5 years, getting laid off repeatedly, I decided it was time to go back to school and try to finish my education.
And where'd you go to school?
Well, immediately out of high school, I went to the W.
Okay.
And I very quickly flunked out. And so, working several years, really made me see the advantage of that. So went back to the W, and I was a star student. And I pulled that very low grade point average up to a 3.0 overall for my college years. And so I had a wonderful time there. Wonderful education, just personalized teachers. It was a really good experience.
I've seen multiple studies that the up until about the age of 65, the older people are when they go back for an undergraduate degree, the GPA is almost like 20% higher than students are in school because the time is so much more valuable. Everyone on our podcast so far has mentioned the value of time. Like the older you get, you realize how much your time is worth.
That's right.
So,
and when I was at United Technologies, we worked 6 or 7 days a week, every week. And when I left there and started going to school, I was like on vacation every day. So hey, put in a few hours of studying, and I was a superstar.
My daughter Allison's going to Ole Miss this year, and her schedule and she's in an honors type college, the International School for Business or whatever, and her schedule's 10 to 2 every day. And for her first reaction is she's so excited because she's like, I can get 2 full-time jobs. I'm like, you got to calm down because you also have to pass school. But that's what she's like, wow, that's like I could work 6 hours before class or, 4 hours, get a morning job and an afternoon job. And it's like it hadn't been like that. I don't remember college only being 3 hours a day, but
no.
Bless her heart, she's going to be awesome at that. So what's the next step after that?
Yeah, so after I graduated from the W, I went to work for a computer store. So I sold software and hardware. We had a lot of government contracts. And so that was my first real professional job. And, I had done a lot of things, but I didn't have the polished professionalism. Not that I'm polished now, but you would see how rough I was. So, sold those for 6 years.
I'd like to interject real quick. For those people under 30 watching at home, we used to have stores where you bought computers and stuff. Now we have stores. Our friend operates a store, the IT help store, that fixes computers. But I think most people under 30 probably have, I don't know if there's still stores that you can just go buy a desktop at.
That's right.
Other than like Walmart. So, and Walmart's not local, so we're not going to say that word again. All right, so continue.
Yes. So while I was there, I had an insurance agent. His name was Lee, and Lee came to see me one day, and I said, "Lee, I want to do what you do." He said, "What?" I said, "I want to sell insurance." And I had tried unsuccessfully a couple of times to get a job working for an insurance agency or insurance company. And so, but Lee looked at me and he said, "Andy, I'm going to get you in the industry. I'm going to help you." So back then, you had to have somebody sponsor you. So he sponsored me to get my license and for going through my schooling. And so once I got that done, I got an opportunity to go to work for one of the statewide insurance companies, and I spent 15 years there.
What year did you start in insurance?
2002.
Perfect timing. Everything's been easy and wonderful since then in insurance.
Oh, man.
Can you speak about how that challenge of working for somebody else in the insurance business led you to work for yourself?
Yeah, when you work for a company that kind of dictates what you have to sell and how you have to sell it, and at this particular company only had one product. You could sell their product or you could not sell. And so I would lose business to independent agents because they could shop a variety of different companies. And I just knew at that point that one day I wanted to be an independent agent.
And what year did you make that jump?
That was in 2017.
Okay, so almost the whole time I've known you. I knew I met your wife, Cheryl, right when Cheryl started talking about people jumping into careers. I make these, tell these stories often. The great folks, Chris and Mike Davis, who bought Remax here in Columbus, they just jumped in about 17 years ago. So right before the crash in 2008, they bought it. And I think one of Cheryl's first couple months on the job at Lion Hills, a young man saved my daughter's life in the pool. That she was almost drowning, and he resuscitated the whole thing. And it's sort of like, hey, a lot of businesses you jump into or jobs sometimes have this chaos thrown at you. Obviously, since late 2019, early 2020, there's been chaos in the world and in insurance. What are some of the biggest challenges you faced from the outside pressure? We'll talk about how you built your business, but what kind of outside pressures have happened that have affected the insurance business, especially in the South?
Well, for a lot of businesses, COVID was a real, it impacted them. But, for us, we set our business up from the very beginning to where it could be totally remote. People did not have to come in to sign a document. They didn't have to come in to make a payment. So that didn't affect us as much as this hard market over the last 24 to 36 months. And it has just been incredibly tough with the price of insurance, sometimes doubling, sometimes tripling. We are scrambling, trying to, keep the increases as moderate as possible, trying to find new companies that we can work with. And I tell you, we had hired some additional help. If we did not have that help to help us to requote this business, I don't think we would have made it over the last 18 months.
Yeah, there's been incredible pressure, not just from all the claims from natural disasters, but the changes in standard. And of course, we're talking about insurance you have to have, like in Mississippi, at least have to have minimum car liability insurance, and homeowners, which for, I think 80% of homeowners is required. Anybody with a mortgage is going to have insurance, and roofs are the big kicker on that. The biggest challenge we're seeing on the real estate side, I've written it into my last two contracts that you have to get an insurance quote during your home inspection period. because we've seen deals fall apart where the mortgage person estimates insurance is going to be $2,000 a year.
Yeah.
And then they can't get a quote under 3. And now the people don't qualify for the loan because of the insurance. And it's, it's a much larger pressure in Louisiana and on the Gulf Coast and in Florida. But, they try to even out their profits and even out their money by charging folks up here more. First week. So take yourself back to your first couple weeks or the discussion with Cheryl that you're going to go out on your own. I imagine, like everyone listening, you had a pile of millions of dollars that you've inherited and money in the bank and no worries in the world to go on this endeavor. Or was there just a little bit of stress as you opened your door to your office the first day and waited for somebody to call or somebody to walk in?
So when I decided to, I had wanted to go independent for a while. And, but, some things, just kind of fell into place where, we knew that we had to make a change, and we didn't know exactly what we were going to do, but we knew we had to make a change. And, Cheryl looked at me and she said, you've been looking for a sign, and I think this is God showing you a sign that it's time to do something different. And so at that point, we started exploring our options, and, she has been incredibly supportive of me and my crazy decisions. When I left the computer company, I took a huge pay cut to go to the insurance company, but that ended up being successful. But then I had to take another. A lot of people in insurance say, I started my agency less than scratch. I mean, It was zero income coming in. And so, it was a huge, I started clipping coupons and, going to Kroger and buying, what was on sale. And, we really, had to, try to conserve and make some really good decisions. Thank goodness, we didn't have tons of money put back, but we didn't have tons of debt. We had tried to be very conservative on that. And so, it was tough, but I tell you, we made it through, and best decision I ever made.
One of the hardest parts, and I've asked a few people on the podcast about it, is that literal moment. Now, God bless my poor wife, Desiree, the times that I have said, I'm leaving Papa John's to buy a crazy newspaper, or I'm leaving a crazy newspaper to go into real estate. We honestly didn't talk about it for hours and make a plan. It was, I kind of mentioned it on the way to going to bed, and she had great faith in me. And did you lay out a whole business plan, or is it just you had talked about it so many times that you're like, I'm doing this tomorrow?
Yeah, we really did.
You didn't really talk about it enough.
We didn't really talk about it.
In hindsight, it was a little crazy.
We didn't have a plan. I just had confidence in myself that, I knew how to take care of people. I knew insurance. I knew I could be successful. And, I just started from home. So I had some really good mentors that, really led me in the way of the technology and stuff that I needed. I started from home. I moved to a little one-room office in Brickerton. Then I moved to a smaller office at Rental Space. And then I moved into a bigger office in Rental Space. And so, it's it's a little bit funny because, we've done it a little bit just by the seat of our britches.
Yeah. Well, that's how most entrepreneurs end up that way. So 2 years ago today would have just been you and Rusty in the office, right?
That's right.
What does your office look like today? And I'm including everyone because you're one of the few people that would be unexpected. If I told you that Josh here at the only Web 3.0 studio at Catfish Alleys in Mississippi, or some forward-thinking tech company had hired some virtual assistants and worked through that process, I think, Andy, you'd be on the bottom of the list of people going, Andy Hubbard probably is using some AI and some virtual assistants and that sort of thing. And so tell me about that process, the mistakes you've made or the good parts of, both trusting the internet and virtual assistants and, any lessons you've learned from that.
Yeah. So, it was just me and Rusty for a long time. And so about 18 months ago, I tell you, it goes back to listen to podcasts. And, so many people talk about virtual assistants and how that they can help you. And when we say virtual assistants, we're talking about people who live in other countries that have a skill set that's beneficial. And so my first go around, I did try it before, and I had some people that I hired from Pakistan, and that just did not work out. The quality of work and the work ethic was not there. But in 2023, we went to Chicago to a insurance conference, and one of the people that were speaking there talked about hiring virtual assistants directly. And so in 24, I said, hey, I need to go back and find out about that. So I went back and I found the notes on that lady and the company that the website that she had used. And I ended up hiring a virtual assistant from the Philippines. And I tell you, when I talk about my virtual assistants, I smile, because I tell you what, I love those guys. They have been so incredibly supportive of me, and they are just so hardworking. And so I initially hired Mark, and so I said, Mark, is there someone in the Philippines that their English is so good that I can't tell that they're from the Philippines? And he said, I think I can find somebody. And so he found Evangeline, and Evangeline answers my telephone calls, and she routes the calls. She takes information. She she does all of my social media. Mark is very, very technical. He's worked for other insurance companies in the United States, so he knows how to quote, how to rate, all of those things. And so it's just been fabulous. And the most recent addition is my wife, Cheryl, who she joined the agency after retiring from East Mississippi Community College.
Yep, and it's been great. And as full disclosure, I think I have maybe 7 policies with you between rentals and my car insurance and stuff. And what I like is that I can still bother Andy. And it's a very quick text, and Andy asks somebody else to get the answer, and I get the answer even quicker and more efficiently. And from a business owner standpoint, if you can have the courage to learn to do those sort of things, like I've let go of some things of creative control, like on this podcast, I've told Josh and Braden, the crew here at Catfish Alley Studios, like, I just want it ready. I need it gone. We need to put it up. Being able to let go of that stuff gives you more time to build your business. It's not just about work-life balance. Like, the more business you do that, the more business you get in, the more tax dollars are created that stay in Lowndes County. So some people are defensive when they hear like out of country work and stuff, but you probably got rid of the biggest objection, is having somebody who speaks in our dialect or relatively good English. Because a lot of people do have that frustration or objection to that because they think that they're not dealing with somebody local. And
that's right.
That's what I love about y'all. And plus, y'all reinvest in the community in other ways. And I just, the bigger your business gets, the better it's going to be for everybody. So
that's right. And, it is, the more that we're able to grow, the more people we're going to be able to hire here in our local office. What I'm looking for, in maybe 26 is hiring another producer. And so that I can work more on the business and try to look at strategic moves that we can make with software, with AI, and things that we're not currently using. There's tons of great stuff out there, but it takes time to search through them, implement them. And, if I'm in the middle of the fire all day long selling policies and servicing policies, I just don't have that time to do that.
Yeah, and I think, as everybody navigates through AI, and I say this often, that took 10 years for Columbus to get a Starbucks. So it's going to take Mississippi and a lot of the Gulf South and most of the United States. It's going to take a longer than people think for a lot of this stuff. But the last people standing will be face-to-face sales. Because at a certain point, if everything is automated, food, everything in your life is automated, then when you start writing bigger and bigger checks or covering yourself personally, you're going to want to talk to a human being Because once you get over, like right now, if 10 to 15% of industries have a high level of automation, when that number gets more to close to 60 or 70%, which it probably will, then it's probably going to flip over where people are going to be like, well, it's going to be a lot easier if I could just call somebody. And I can tell you that at the end of the day, for insurance, finance, and real estate, most people want to talk to somebody in person.
That's right. I mean, because, a computer cannot know your individual need. It can look at a lot of different, factors. It can make all kinds of different suggestions. But when in the end, it doesn't really know who Colin Krieger is. It doesn't know, what his goal is in life and what his risk tolerance is. It can't know those things unless we, have a face-to-face talk, and when I say face-to-face, that can be text. Text works absolutely great. Someone can text me something. I got one of my clients text me over the weekend. And so when I got in today, I see his text message. Actually, I saw it over the weekend, but this morning I just took it and sent it to Mark. I said, hey, Mark, he said, go ahead and add that car. So Mark is adding that car right now. Yeah. And so, text works good. Email works good. And, but we use all of that.
Well, I tell people, like, you do have to do some of this stuff in real life. There's a lot of people right now who are trying to avoid work because they think it's cool. Like, they're trying to use some things just so they don't have to do anything ever. And it's sort of like, I think I told you about starting this podcast. Like, this is just as good as going to lunch.
Yeah.
We don't need to eat, but you can have the discussion. You learn it. We have a thing in our BNI networking group, which is 1-to-1s, which is meeting for an hour and talking about business. And you and I talk about like personal growth on podcast a lot. So, as far as competition, not local competition, because we like all our local people, but are there bigger companies in the industry or people trying to just edge into markets, that with the argument that you just go online and press a button and you're going to be covered?
Yeah. There are a lot of companies that, have really tried to come on and say, we're just going to be completely direct to consumer. But time after time after time, you're seeing these people are, they are actually appointing independent agents to represent them. And the latest in the that I have seen is Geico. In Mississippi, Geico is appointing some agents. Of course, Progressive has agents. And so I think that people do see that need to have that one-to-one interaction. That's the way I say it is anybody can go and buy a policy.
Yeah.
Buying a policy is the easy part. But what happens when you have that claim? And you pick up the phone and that person really doesn't care who you are, how many policies you have with the company, they're going to give you that flat. But I tell you, you pick up the phone and you call a local agent and you're saying, I'm having trouble with this claim. Can you help me? Absolutely. Your local independent agent will go in there and go to bat for you and do anything and everything they can to help you.
Because we're past the glory days so I would say this maybe 20 years ago, 25 years ago, if you got in a little fender bender, somebody hit you, the other insurance company would just call you and either offer you $5,000 or $10,000 just to get it off their books. And if you had just a minimum of hail damage on your roof, they would just replace the roof. And part of that reason for years and years and years was they had a chart, and the amount of times that they denied a claim and a small leak was already there and it caused mold and killed a kid was equal to them replacing 200 other roofs. So they just automatically did it. And they have flipped the other way with a vengeance now. I've seen them, insurance adjusters, especially on national policies for my clients where the people just went online and pressed a button. There's no recourse. Like you right. Literally are talking to a customer service robot. Yeah. And they're just like, nope. Here, whereas, as you know, and anybody who wants to know exactly where the windstorm hit last May in Columbus, you can draw a circle around downtown Columbus, as my friends at WCBI told me, and you can mark my house and 3 of my rental houses, and that's exactly where they got hit. And I was able to just text Andy and go like, hey, this, the guy hadn't responded. It's been a week. And it was a lot easier to go through somebody I knew than some giant company that didn't do it. So
somebody who actually cares.
Yeah, and knows who I am. Also, as when I take people to use local insurance agents when they're buying a house, or use a local mortgage person, even more importantly, is that I know that Andy is at Kroger at 5:15 every Friday, and if I somehow could reach his neck to choke him if he did something wrong, which he doesn't do anything wrong, but I know where to find these people. I know the mortgage people that play tennis. I know the bankers that play golf. I know the insurance people that are at Line Hills Country Club swimming. So if somebody was trying to do something wrong or duck me, there's some accountability here, which is the biggest reason to try to invest all you can locally. I went in Walmart. I told this story to a bunch of people. February of this year to buy a TV for my clubhouse thing. And by the way, after I did it, I realized that I just had to be reminded by my wife, like, oh, people at Cowboy Mahoney's and other places. So I literally didn't, but I went in there. I'm like, what's in winter? 45-inch TVs, $200. Like I hadn't been in Walmart in years because I just try to have this discipline thing where I don't go, and I'm going to try to do the business everywhere else. But I needed one in a hurry because one broke. But then I was like, oh, wait, I can at least go to Cowboy Mahoney's because that's one more level of local, And then you start to realize, like, Military Hardware can order anything you want. I'm do very good with that, where I can just text Robert or Keaton at Military Hardware, and they can get anything I find on Amazon, they can get just as quick as Amazon. That's Luckily, right. I live close, so they'll throw it on my porch, too.
And, that's the thing that, we try to use all the technology so you don't have to come in our office. We probably average 1, maybe 2 people a day that actually come in our office. No, I mean, it's I don't even turn the lights on sometimes because nobody comes in. But because we can do all the different things through email and e-sign and all of that. But I always tell people, I would love to meet you. I would love for you to come in. But if it is more convenient for you, then we can do this all over the phone. We can do it through email. But that's the thing. You can find me. I am in my office. And if you need me, I would love to meet you.
Are there, and you may not be able to say this without getting in trouble when you get home, can you talk about any challenges of having your wife work with you? Because my wife and I, even though we were much younger, had a tough time running a Papa John's or a restaurant together. There were some difficulties sometimes, and both those were type A personality things. I just didn't know if y'all have had any speed bumps yet, or she's amazing.
Is
she amazing, or are you amazing?
All you have to say is yes, ma'am, and everything is fine.
That's a little secret there, huh?
Yeah.
A little secret
there. I tell you what, Cheryl is such a brilliant person, and she has. As we talked earlier about just kind of running this thing by the seat of our britches, she has come in and brought a lot of order to that through a lot of our accounting work and stuff. And so running reports. And so, she has found so many different things that has helped to boost our efficiency and give us a clearer picture of where we are. I was thinking, gosh, we haven't grown very much. And, but then we found out that there was a lot of stuff that hadn't got reported. And I'm like, oh, well, we're doing better than I thought. Yeah,
We're doing all right.
So, there hasn't been a downside yet.
Well, sometimes I say that, I can usually tell whether I like somebody or I think if I don't know them or I see them from a distance, I usually reflect on, how their kids act or what I see from them in their marriage. So going into the insurance business, going out on your own, you can make some mistakes. You can go out in the woods and get bit by a snake. So let's take a right turn and tell me the story about when your wife, y'all like to go camping and stuff like that, or I don't know if it's glamping or camping. Yeah. Tell me when Cheryl got bit by a snake. Was that 3-4 years ago now?
That was 2020. I mean, 2020 was a great year.
2020 was rolling. So.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So, we have this KOA down in Toomsuba, Mississippi, right outside of Meridian, and we loved to go there. They had a nice pool, and so we went almost every holiday during the summer. And so we had all gone out to eat one night. It was about, let's just say maybe about 8:30, 9 o'clock. And Cheryl was gathering all of her stuff up out of the car, was fixing to go in the camper. And she gets out and she says, oh my gosh, something just bit me. I'm like, what? Oh my God, it's a snake. It's a snake. And sure enough, it was about a 5-foot rattler. And, it popped her really, really good. And so she ended up in the hospital there, let's see, in Meridian. And I didn't know this, but when you first get snake bit, they just kind of draw a little line and they start to see if the swelling goes up or not. Because if the swelling doesn't go up, they say, oh, it was a dry bite. Well, hers just kept moving. And so after several hours, 3, maybe 4 hours, they actually start the antivenom. And so she ended up taking 11 vials of antivenom at $3,000 a vial. So she got...
I was about to say, I think that's an insurance protocol, because that's what... Are you sitting in the hospital thinking of the insurance company at the same time? Because that procedure you're talking about, I've seen a video on where, like, they're saying, okay, it's 2 inches away. Like, much like a lot of modern medical practices is just like why they don't do MRIs. You do an x-ray before every MRI. My wife's had like 60 MRIs. They always do an x-ray. And we're like, we know what's wrong.
Yeah.
But they literally don't want to spend the money on the vial of antivenom unless you really have it. And
right.
I know there's some downsides too to getting antivenom if you're not poisoned. So that, is that a heart-wrenching procedure? Was she hurting otherwise?
She was, I guess, more scared than anything, and ended up that her leg had swollen so much they had to go in and do surgery and open it up, put a vac in to draw the swelling out. She had her foot opened up, to keep it from bursting open. She spent several days in intensive care, and came home with a wound vac, and it was really a traumatic thing. And she can't really watch the Discovery Channel anymore.
Well, I know this doesn't seem like it has to do with business, but if you're talking about marriage and family and business, like, what is the amount of time between she gets bit to when both of you stop thinking, oh my God, she could die? Because y'all have gone through health challenges. My wife's been through them. Like, you have those moments when you're like waiting for the diagnosis. Is there a certain amount of time, like from the camper till the hospital, or you?
Yeah, I had a friend, Alan Ming, that drove us to the hospital. And we did find out that his van topped out about 115. And so
off the record to your insurance, your auto, if your auto home insurance is listening to this, that's a non-libelous statement.
And so
it's his van, you don't care.
Yeah. It was an emergency. We had it on the flashers.
Yeah, everything's fine.
That makes it okay. But so we got there, and it was COVID. COVID was going on, and so they didn't have any rooms. They put her in a COVID room in the emergency room. And so I kept trying to get back there, and they were supposed to give me updates, and finally I just kind of demanded to go back there. Well, if you get COVID, I'm like, who cares? I need to be back there with my wife. She's crying. She said, I didn't know where you were. And I'm like, they wouldn't let me back here. And I just was able to covertly sneak into the hospital every day. And I went into intensive care, and I did not look anybody in the eye. I just walked by them, and I went back in her room and pulled the curtain shut.
Yeah.
And I was very, very quiet. So.
In fact, in business and life, most of the key to success is to act like you know what you're doing. Act like you belong.
Yeah. Don't ask.
Did you happen to grab the snake? I know some people have that theory that you're supposed to grab and kill the snake to bring it with you. I'm assuming you did not grab the snake and bring it with you, did you?
No.
Okay.
They did kill the snake. I do have a picture of it.
Okay.
But I thought that one of my buddies would have saved a rattler or something for me. I mean, can you believe they didn't save
They
that?
didn't kill it for you?
Yeah. They killed it, but, they let somebody else have that. So,
yeah, I didn't know. That's a theory with some people. I think the best you can do is take a picture of the snake and bring it with you, because there's only a couple different types of venom, from what I understand.
Yeah. So, man, I tell you, it's, it could have, they had never seen a snake there before. The ground was just, you think campground, you think, oh, the grass was a foot deep. No, I mean, it's completely clean, never seen one before. They've never seen one since. But
COVID was a weird time for everybody. I guess the snake wasn't wearing a mask.
It was not.
That's probably the biggest challenge with it. So.
Yeah.
So as far as your business in Columbus, so you're fixing appliances, then you're selling appliances, and you're working for somebody else's insurance. With your insurance company now, can you talk about how it's grown? Like, what did you do intentional things to have it grown other than joining B&I, where they're running ads everywhere? I know we've seen little signs for Andy Hubbard for the flood insurance all over the state of Mississippi, correct?
That's right.
So what were I thought that was ingenious. I don't think anybody else is putting out little signs in other parts of the state. So where did those kind of concepts come from? So
yeah, I don't really know where that started, but we had, even from my previous days, I love writing flood insurance. And so now private flood insurance that is not written through FEMA is just wildly popular. And as a matter of fact, we just doubled down. We just got a new company last week. I spent about an hour on the phone with the CEO last Friday, trying to tweak some of his websites. And so what we're trying to get is something so any kind of a real estate professional, mortgage lender, or just somebody who's buying a home that could be in the flood zone can look and go to my website. There's a link on my website, and you can click on it, go through there, and you can get an indication on, is the house in the flood zone? What's the cost to buy flood insurance for it? So if you're out there looking on Saturday or Sunday, you can be able to do that. So, but what I did was I made these signs, and I've got on Google Maps, and I started looking at the river, and I went all the way down to Demopolis. And anywhere on the river I saw some houses, I punched that address in, and we drove to that location and put signs up at the end of the road. So we have flood insurance in Bowlagee, Alabama, Gainesville. We have them in Pickensville, Aliceville, down all the way up to Fulton, all through Aberdeen. So we have people calling us, lenders, bankers and stuff from Tupelo, from all over, saying, hey, we hear you're the guy to go to for flood insurance. And we absolutely love to do that. And I do give a lot of that credit to just putting those signs out and letting people know what we do.
Well, it gets back to doing stuff in real life. Like a lot of business people, or I've talked to kids who do stuff on social media, and they're like, I only got 15 likes. And I go back to Young Colin restaurant tour in 2021 in New Orleans. I would go hand out cheesecakes and sample salads at big office buildings and hope that one person called back that day. And, you're doing the legwork. You're doing mechanical stuff. You're putting up signs all over the state, much less that I know. I'm sure there's young insurance people in other parts of the state that are going, well, I ran an ad on Google and I ran an ad on Facebook and I haven't gotten anything. And I went to my church group. I'm sure they're happy to hear that you're selling them insurance, and shook. And, I talk about going out in person, shaking babies and kissing hands, or
something like that.
I've got insurance for that also. But you have to do the stuff in real life, and the actual work, the actual labor of putting out little signs that, that used to be it. Handing out business cards used to be the whole thing. I encourage people to go to networking events, and they'll be like, what's the same 20 or 30 people every time? And I said, well, the difference is the person who doesn't go. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, they're either comfortable with their business and they're not growing. We talked about that this week at our B&I meeting about people who have left groups or stopped coming, who got to a certain level of business and they're happy, where they'd be much better off hiring other people. And there's other people who don't need it. There's legendary insurance agents who, by the time they get in their 60s or 70s, just got them and Maud, their secretary, and they're just they got their book of business and they're fine. I'm at a certain point getting close to that point with real estate. I love doing real estate, and I want all I can get. But, do you want to have 10 people helping you? And some people don't have the organization, or as you said, the lack of organization to put their foot in the fire and learn the AI stuff and learn the personal assistant stuff. And again, you're not the typical person for that. That's why I wanted to have you on here, is because I think most people would just think you're the secretary, and you're just sitting there looking through your ledger book and your paper files, where you're as technically proficient for sure as any insurance person in town.
I really got upset I was listening to this podcast, and the guy said, insurance agents in their 50s and 60s, they're not into all this technology. And I'm like, hey, I am 59 years old and I am still learning. I am pressing as hard as I can to implement newer technologies, to learn everything that's out there. I listen to probably 10 hours of podcast a week. I listen to all kinds of audio books on leadership and business skills and negotiating, and I'm trying to make myself better. I'm not satisfied with just being mediocre.
Yeah.
And so it's when he said that, oh man, like that's not me.
No, and I like to say I'm an education-based agent. You and I have connected on that on podcasts and shared podcasts back and forth about learning, because there are just little nuggets from so many people, and in our community, people would be shocked. Again, there are some people that would think that I'm on Facebook all day and that's all I do, and I don't even do TikTok, and I barely do Instagram. Like I do it for my customers and clients and stuff, but for myself, like, I like to jump on there and then I nerd out and listen to, my poor kids have to listen to so many personal growth and marketing podcasts. And, Brian Buffini, who we both listen to now, they're like, that Irish guy's talking about personal growth again. But now, like the other day, I said something negative, like just in passing, to my oldest daughter. And she said, you're not going to manifest anything if you're talking bad. Don't dig your own hole. And I'm just like, your kids are too busy, won't listen to you because they're too busy watching what you do. How's your daughter doing? So she's switched over to Heritage last year.
She did.
Is she you gonna make her work at your at the store?
I have really tried to give that opportunity to her. She is babysitting this summer. And babysitters make a lot more.
She's working. I mentioned it on my podcast with Paul Picard that my daughters can't go in normal jobs because babysitting and pet sitting, especially if you're professional and communicate with them, with people. And my middle daughter's detailing cars, like they're making competitive salaries for people leaving college if they have enough clients, and plus they can study while they're doing it, and it works out great. And so she's I like to say babysitters are entrepreneurs,
Yeah, and she's going to she'll be a junior next year, and it's something. You get to that age and you start to see maybe not the finish line, but you see. Hey, she's got 2 more years and she'll be out of high school.
Yeah, you might have an empty nest or something. So.
And they go so fast.
Oh, no, we were fortunate at the same time in our lives, and my wife Desiree and I she had breast cancer, finished chemo, and then we finished chemo, we went to Disney World, and on the way back, we stopped at Buc-ee's and they're talking about COVID. We're like, oh, well, she can't go anywhere, and that was a nice break. I think you and I have talked about before about the people stopped then. They had some people like myself. I spent hundreds of hours learning about taxes for business and reevaluating insurance and reevaluating stuff. So it's rare that you get a time where the whole world stops. But during that time, we talked about our priorities more, which was like, hey, we want them to have the opportunity to go to whatever college they want. I'm not going to try to limit them the way you and I may have been limited, or just even with work. The day I turned 13, I was already cutting grass and doing other things, but I had a job at a restaurant, and I worked 40 hours through high school. I didn't want them to have to do it. I wanted them to want to work as much as they want. Then we were like, if they go to college, I want them to have the best first semester they can ever have. And then they better work, because I am not going to ruin or hamstring their life by having them, $100,000 in debt when they leave college for a degree that, in the next 10 years, people may not value as much, because this generation is definitely going to care less about the degree that I don't have, you don't have, or Scott Ferguson, we talked about, didn't have a degree or something. They don't. They care about what service you can provide. Do I know you? Are you good at what you do? And do you care about me?
That's right.
Those are the hardest standards forever. And I know you radiate trust is what I say when people meet you. So,
well, one of the things that I did want to say, and I was thinking about this, what were some of the greatest lessons that my parents ever taught me? And I was thinking about my mom, and my mom told me from when I was just a small child, she said, never mistreat anyone. Never mistreat anyone. And, when I went to school, started at Stokes Spirit Elementary School here in Columbus, and integration had just started. And, there was a lot of people who, were not kind. And my mom told me never mistreat anybody because, she grew up during the Depression and before, and there was no one any more poor than she was. And, she told me stories, of, literally going to bed hungry and not having food and not knowing where the next meal was going to come from. And so she had that very humble, where, I speak to everybody. You never mistreat anybody. You treat everybody with respect. That was from my mom. And from my dad, he never taught me this until his funeral. And I get choked up just thinking about this. But person after person after person came up to me and said, your dad was the most honest man I've ever met. And I tell you, that has always been my goal in life, is at my funeral, I want people to walk up to my family and say, Andy Hubbard was the most honest man I have ever met. I think that would be a tremendous legacy.
Well, hopefully people won't wait till the funeral. I'm a big fan of when people get honored for stuff during their life. Like, I don't think the gold watch that police get when they retire. I think people need to know that when they're alive. I've spoken to everyone I can about Kenny Weigel, who worked for the city inspector, who retired, and they had a little retirement party. But that guy deserves a key to the city, and there's people like that who deserve it. And I like the phrase, legacy is greater than currency.
Yes.
And that's what our kids are for and our family are for. And you're definitely leaving a good one. Now, speaking of currency,
Yes.
you got to have to put yourself together. This is the end of the show. You have to plug away. So how do we get in touch with you? How do we send you business? And what's the best thing we can do for you listeners in the audience?
All right. Well, I tell you what, we've got several different ways. So, our ideal client is a person who's just a little bit tech savvy, someone who has an email address and knows how to check it and can do the e-signature. On our website, we have an option that people can go online and buy bonds or buy flood insurance or check the price. We can help you with that too. But we also have on our website an intake form. So if you need auto insurance, car insurance, you can go on. It's a little jot form that people can fill out. It sends it directly to us. And so that's our ideal client. But you can call us. Evangeline is a sweet young lady, and she will answer the telephone. And if you can give her your information, hey, if we, if you need car insurance or home insurance, flood insurance, I tell you what, if you know anybody who has flood insurance, needs flood insurance, is buying a house in a flood zone, we want to be your flood insurance agent. But my telephone number is 662-241-9669. And my website is AHI, as in Auto Home Insurance, or Andy Hubbard Insurance, whichever way you want to do that. AHI-insurance or hyphen. I've had people say, is it a dash or is it a hyphen? Right. Either one of them.
You're the customer is always correct.
Yes, ahi-insurance.com. And you can call, you can email, and we'd love to have you. What we're looking for is for quality people who are concerned about actual protection. We're all looking to get a good price. We all want to save money when we can, but we also want to give you the kind of coverage that's going to protect you in case something does happen. If you're out there and you happen to rear end somebody and total out your Ford Expedition, which my daughter continually reminds me that I totaled out our Ford Expedition. But, so you want to make sure that you have coverage that's going to take care of it. If you hurt somebody, if you kill somebody, we want people who want to take care of that. And so, just give us a call, go online, and we're going to do it. We're going to take care of you.
Good deal. Thanks for coming today. If you're listening to the podcast, make sure you call AHI Insurance before you rear end that person right in front of you.
Yes, not after.
All right. Thanks a bunch.
All right. Thank you.